Hello and welcome to Property Box News. I'm Simon Evison. This week, a look at the latest on the tenant fees bill, stamp duty and garden gnomes. The ban on letting fees charged by landlords and letting agents is on its way, along with new rules on deposits, with the tenant fees bill introduced into Parliament this week. There are major concerns across the industry that this bill will not have the right effect. The government believes the ban will save tenants around £240 million a year. It will also ensure tenants' deposits do not exceed the equivalent of 6 weeks' rent. A government statement said that the tenant fees bill will stop letting agents from exploiting their position as intermediaries between landlords and tenants and prevent unfair practices, such as double charging for the same services. But the RLA argues that changes should have been made to better enforce existing regulations designed to improve transparency around letting agent fees. Since May 2015, the law has compelled letting agents to publish details of the fees they charge. Agents breaking this law can be fined up to £5,000. However, according to data published last year by the National Approved Letting Scheme, 93% of councils had failed to issue a single financial penalty to a letting agent for breaching the law. The real concern is that with letting agent fees banned, the agents will pass on the cost to the landlord, who will of course have no choice but to up the rent, and of course the tenant still pays one way or another. Arla Property Mark are in agreement, and Chief Exec David Cox had this to say. The day we have been expecting since the Chancellor announced the ban on tenant fees in the Autumn Statement 2016 has arrived, with the tenant fees bill beginning its passage through Parliament. We do not believe the bill will achieve its aims, as our own research last year demonstrated that tenants will end up worse off and banning fees will not result in a more affordable private rented sector. So what are your thoughts? Should agents be forced to display and explain what fees are for more prominently, or should fees be banned at all? Leave a comment below, and if fees are banned, will you, as a landlord, increase your rent? Comment below, we'd love to hear from you. Now here's a question that comes up fairly frequently, and it goes, I've bought my house as a first-time buyer and was stamp duty exempt. I now intend to let it out. Will I pay stamp duty? Well, the exemption from stamp duty for first-time buyers was announced in November last year and means those taking their first steps onto the housing ladder can save as much as £5,000 in stamp duty. For those thinking of purchasing a buy-to-let as their first property, the exemption doesn't apply. But this case is a bit of a grey area. HM Revenue and Customs official guidance doesn't contain any information about the minimum time you must live in the property for the exemption to apply. The tax office says that if someone has lived in the property, then the exemption was correctly applied and no additional tax would be due. While there is no minimum requirement for the length of occupancy, if the period is very short, HMRC may challenge a buyer's original intention. Aside from stamp duty, there are other things to consider before you let out your home. Most mortgage lenders will require you to ask their permission before you rent out your property. Generally, if you have lived there for less than 6 months, you will need a fairly good reason in order to be accepted. Work placement overseas, for example, normally does the trick. Some lenders will increase your interest rates, others, such as Santander, will charge a fixed fee, others won't grant permission to let within the first 12 months. Whatever you do, check out the T's and C's of your mortgage policy and also have a word with your tax advisor to see what they say. And finally, how was your bank holiday weekend in the sun? The supermarkets said they did all right, with huge increases in sales in barbecues, charcoal and ice cream. Wyvale Garden Centre said they have seen a boost in cocktail herb sales recently. Mint for mojito and Pimm's did particularly well. And Asda's sale of paddling pools were up 50% as customers sought to keep cool, and their range of novelty garden gnomes were flying off the shelves. I'll leave that one there. That's all from me. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Goodbye.